All right, thanks all. Is this on? Yeah, cool. Okay, so I titled this, how my life changed after shaking hands with the devil. And I think the devil is still probably with us because we haven't quite got rid of him yet. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. So 14th of May, 2021, what was famous about that day? It was National Buttermilk Biscuit Day in the USA. The one I really liked was, it was National Dance Like a Chicken Day in the USA. How do you dance? Whatever. But I think in my parlance, it's the day Thanos arrived in Children's Health Ireland and the rest of the HSE and clicked his fingers on our IT systems. And for those of you who don't know the Avengers, go and look at it. For the rest of you, you probably get that. What happened on that day from a HSE perspective? Everything kind of really went. They lost all their national systems. We lost all of the underlying capability, all of the email. I think Jess made reference to this previously. The National Health Network was gone. We had no internet. We had over 2,500 core systems gone. And God knows what the PC fleet was like at that stage. Within Children's Health Ireland, we had about 250 servers, all impacted. We guessed within, I suppose, 48 hours, we reckoned we had about 70% of our PCs were impacted. We lost everything. We lost all of our local systems. We were highly connected to the HSE, so we lost all of that. We were totally dark, and we had very limited resources. And what security resources would a hospital like Children's Health Ireland have at that time? None. We had probably two of our techies who did a little bit of patching and a little bit of updating of antivirus, and that was it, along with everything else that they did. So no dedicated security resources in a hospital the size, or there are two hospitals effectively, Crumlin and Temple Street, that sit within CHI. And that is reflected across other institutions in health at that time. So this is kind of what we got when we came in that morning. I was woken up at about quarter past 5, phone call, think we have a problem, Neil. I think you need to get in. We're not sure what's going on. On the drive in, I get a phone call from a trusted colleague in the HSE. Neil, we're in real trouble. This is serious. So we get in, we give the instruction, cut everything, pull the plug and start figuring out what's going on and try and get people in. And that was the first couple of hours. And then everything was gone. And I suppose the best analogy I can give you was from a colleague in the HSE, Helen Coughlin, who's the CTO in the HSE. She said, this isn't like your house going on fire. This is like someone just got rid of the house, foundations and all, and we have to literally start rebuilding from the foundations. And that's exactly what it was like. So what was our response? Day one, really get the people in, get the systems down, try and investigate where we were impacted. By the end of the first week, I suppose we had some level of understanding of where we were at. We were starting to rebuild some servers in a very protected kind of network environment. We needed to check if they were okay. We started to get word that we were getting the ransomware key, the decryption key. The HSE had gotten that, I think, at the end of the first week, but it really wasn't that much use. They had to go through a re-engineering process to make it use. We would try and decrypt some of our servers. You'd find it wouldn't happen, wouldn't really work that well. You'd have to do it again, you'd try again. Actually, it was quicker almost to rebuild the bloody things than go through the decryption key. So it really, in a lot of cases, it wasn't much use. By week 2 to 5, we were starting to build effectively a factory to rebuild all of our PCs. We had we had people in from the army who were helping us to kind of pull out disks, throw the disks in the bin and rebuild and stick a new one in and start going again. We're starting to open up the National Health Network, and we were starting to interact with kind of national systems at that stage. So I just want to give you one simple example of how a totally unexpected situation impacted us as a result of the cyber. So this is NIMS. NIMS is a national imaging system. You don't need to know too much about it, but effectively it's all of the x-rays around the country are connected through one system. And it's a system that resides in Crumlin Hospital at the time. We had no NIMS system, so we had nothing to store our images on. So somebody came up with a great idea that we could actually extract them off the devices and stick them onto Apple Macs, and we could start to see them. So that was cool. Then we started to kind of get some of the stuff that was kind of clean. We wanted to turn back on the network. We went to turn back on the network, and the network switch wouldn't turn on. Lo and behold, it had never been turned off in 11 years. right? Now, you might say, well, you've had a network switch for 11 years. Yeah, we did, because there was so little investment within the health service at the time. We were still waiting to get funding for that. So switch dies, we didn't have a spare switch, right? We couldn't get one because of the age of those devices, and we had to reach out to colleagues in James's who happened to be throwing out a bunch of those switches, and a good colleague, John Nolan, said, Neil, I think I have one or two, we'll strip it, we'll rebuild it, we'll get it up to you by the afternoon, and we got it up and we were able to get going again. It took us 4 weeks to get a national system that was not impacted by cyber, to get it back up and running. That's the whole impact. So, I'm going to bring you back in history a little bit, back to about 2011. I was in James's at the time. The board wanted a cybersecurity review done, the hospital board. A company came in and reviewed it and analysed it and interviewed lots of people and went to clinicians and said, how long can you possibly live without a system in ED? And the response from all of them was about an hour. We can live with about an hour, right? And after that, we have chaos. I knew that was bullshit, excuse the language, because we had actually taken the systems down for about 4 hours to do upgrades. So that was rubbish, so you can't believe that. But let's say it was 6 hours or 8 hours, something. They were really saying, after that, you need to shut the hospital. We can't have an intake. If we lose our systems, we have nothing. This wiped everything out for weeks, and yet the hospitals continued, and yet our staff were able to treat patients. That's a testament to the people on the ground. It really is. So forget the technology. It really is your people on the ground. Day 5, this was just the status. You don't need to know the details, but you can get an idea. The number of reds indicates how bad things were. By day 38, a few were starting to get things up. And where are we now? I suppose the only mistake in life is a lesson not learned. Did we lose data? Yes, there was data exfiltrated. Are we fully clear on what that data is? We're starting to get a good picture of it. Most of it actually was just rubbish. Most of the stuff that we've seen today they really didn't know what they were taking. So that's good, I suppose, in one way, but it's a salutary lesson, I suppose, in the other way. We were very over-reliant on HSE systems. We consumed a lot of the national systems, and we broke that trust. We had to break that trust relationship from an IT perspective, which has caused our users problems. So we need to go through a divorce in that area. We did not have a single view of security at that time. We were certainly over-reliance on really scarce technical experts. And what really happened in this was they just got exhausted, right? Try and work 14, 15 hours a day trying to rebuild systems for an extended period of time. They were just dead. They couldn't think anymore, and we were in real trouble in terms of our own resources. We really didn't have little or no spending on cybersecurity, and the same still exists today. We all have requests in for more funding, but we haven't received anything really in that way to this point in time. Loads of Windows 7 devices, all over the media. Oh, why have the HSE got Windows 7 devices? That's ridiculous. All of these experts were on the radio saying how desperate this was. Actually, we needed them because a lot of our systems needed Windows 7 to run. So if you knew anything about health service, you would know that we actually still needed them. And that process only started really this year to start getting, or last year I should say, to start getting rid of some of those. And we have not renewed our cyber insurance. Okay, really didn't work. Wasn't really of much benefit to us, so we've got rid of that. So what's interoperability lessons? As I said, over-reliance on multiple systems. We're really now starting to look at cloud-based systems. We don't have the resources to manage our systems ourselves. We're not probably going to get a bank of IT engineers and CISOs and everything like that. It's probably not going to happen. So we have to move towards cloud-based, where any of our cloud-based systems tend to be a little bit more resilient than what we have. And the Children's Hospital is going to be a fully digital hospital. That sounds great, but it also gives you the bit of the willies, right, in terms of what happened to us on that time. There was a post-incident review, as there always is, post-incident reviews. And they came up with the timeline. Actually, they were in the system way before the May 21st timeline. They were actually in the system from March, poking around exactly as Chris had mentioned, doing that sort of stuff. And really they identified where the issues were, and we could have stopped it. It was it was a fairly simple attack. But hindsight is great. We're all experts in when we come to hindsight. I won't go through this timeline. They came up with, this report came up with different recommendations, but really you can bunch them together in terms of governance on one side and in terms of people on the other side. So did we have good governance? Probably not. Did we have the right people? No, we definitely didn't. And you can move forward on that. And now CHI, as kind of Richard mentioned earlier, around the operator of essential services, CHI has now been identified as one of these operator of essential services, and that brings even more responsibility, I suppose on us. So what's happened since then? We've issued divorce proceedings with the HSE, agreed by both parties. I'm not sure who's going to get the kids, but anyway, we're definitely moving towards cloud and SaaS-based solutions. We've started to replace Windows 7 devices. If you have 3 people in your technical team, replacing 2,000 PCs is going to take you a little bit of time. So it's great getting the money, but there's all these practical things you actually have to do. We have actually then got funding to start upgrading some of our core infrastructure, so that actually is happening. So again, thanks very much to colleagues, I suppose, in the HSE for supporting on this. But there's more we need to do. We don't have a 24/7 SOC, for example. We don't have a CISO. We don't have any of these sort of things. We're starting to educate our end users in basic stuff, and we also need to start working on the OES process. A last thought, I suppose, pray to God that it doesn't happen to you, because it's not a very pleasant period of time. It was 6 months, I suppose, of hell. Interestingly, in the comments by a lot of our clinical staff, and bear in mind, CHI, COVID does not impact kids in the same way as it impacted adults. I think we all know that at this stage. But our staff, our clinical staff, said that the impact of COVID was an awful lot less than the impact of the cyber attack. Way less. They could handle the COVID. They found it really difficult to handle the cyber attack. So that was the impact from the health service. You can imagine in an adult hospital, even worse than that again for those who are involved. And as I said, don't trust the opinions of some people in terms of your clinical colleagues. They did a brilliant job in maintaining services. They were very inventive in trying to get the system back up and running. And finally, last slide, I suppose the backroom team became the frontline heroes. No one really knew what these techies, these weirdos sitting in a prefab did. They knew what they did after that time. So I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you very much.